something for working moms is you can feel like your time belongs to everyone but yourself because you have this huge chunk of your day. That's your work day. And then you do the second shift from like 5 to whatever your kids go to bed with dinner, bath time, and the bedtime routine. And then you're like left with what, a half hour, an hour to yourself. So yeah, some people get to that point of like, well, when do I get to breathe? And for some people, maybe leaving the workforce is the answer. But some things to consider is you can also be a stay-at-home mom and also have those same feelings of overwhelm and not having time for yourself. So it's looking at, do I need to set better boundaries? Am I overextending myself? And am I saying yes to things that I really don't want to be saying yes to, and reflecting on where can I say no? People feel burnout in work and with parenting. I think you can approach work in a more sustainable way, and you can also approach parenting in a more sustainable way.
Welcome to the Marriage and Motherhood podcast. I'm your host, Michelle Perda. As a marriage coach who's married with 3 kids, I know how much parenthood could change a marriage. If flirting, laughing, and having fun together feels like a thing of the past, then I'm here to teach you that marriage doesn't have to feel so hard with your parents, and your marriage can thrive even when you're in the season of raising kids. Whether you're in a good place in your marriage and you just want to continue growing together, or you're wondering if you even like your spouse anymore, this podcast has something for you. Join me here each week as we dive into what it takes to help your marriage grow, and maybe even do a 180. You'll learn ways to handle conflict better, bring that spark back into your relationship, as well as learn how to improve other areas of your life from my lovely guest experts. Are you ready for the next stage of your life and marriage? Let's dive in. Hello. Welcome back to another episode of the Marriage and Motherhood podcast. This episode, I have a special guest here who is going to teach you what you can do to help your life as a working mom feel like you're not on the struggle bus all the time. Feel like that the life that you're building and living is sustainable and that you're not constantly in survival mode. I know I personally experienced this when I was working in the corporate world and being a stepmom and having a baby at the same time. It was a lot. And so I'm super excited to have Jennifer Gagnon here because she is a working mom coach. She's going to dive into work-life balance and all the things. And so I'm super excited. I know a lot of you are handling this in your everyday life, and who can't use more help and tips and tricks and all that to make life easier? Because I know I can, right? And so I'm super excited to have you here, Jennifer. I know it's been a long time coming. I've been following you for a while. I love the stuff that you share, and I'm so excited that we were able to make this work. Welcome. Can you please share with us where you live, how old your kids are, and what you do as a working mom coach and how you got started doing that?
Yeah, so thank you. So thanks for having me here. I'm super excited to be here. I am in Rhode Island in the US. I'm married. I have 2 little kids. They're 3 and 5. And like you said, I'm a working mom coach. And that really came about through my own experience of going back to work after maternity leave with my first child. And I was not expecting the challenges that I had to start navigating being a working mom with a 3-month-old because, we don't get a ton of maternity leave here in the States. So my baby was still fresh and I was back to work, and it was really challenging.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think so many moms out there can relate to that. We aren't all in the position to be in a single income family, and we need both people working. And so how do we do that, right? I know for my family growing up, when it was my mom and my dad, my mom was working and there were 2 of us, right? Me and my sister before my step family came into the picture. And there was so much pressure on my mom to be a thriving employee, successful and high achieving. But then when she came home, then she had to take care of us, cook, clean, help us with homework. The partnership aspect in my parents' marriage just wasn't there. And so in modern days, as a working mom, I feel like we're starting to kind of change our expectations of partnership. And some are lucky to have that true definition of partnership where both people are hands-on and everything. But there's also still working moms who are doing it all and working as if they are not working and a stay-at-home mom taking care of all of the things, right?
Right.
And so I'm very interested to hear from you. What's been your experience working with your clients, people who are working moms, people who love motherhood and love to have their own thing going on outside of home life? What's that work-life balance like? How do you define work-life balance and how do you work with them?
Yeah. So for me, work-life balance, and it's funny because like a lot of people will say there's no such thing.
Right?
Don't talk about work-life balance. Like don't, it's almost like you're dangling something in front of people that they'll never be able to obtain. But I think that it is possible because for me, work-life balance is more of like a feeling within you. Do you feel like it's not necessarily giving equal parts to work and equal parts to your family, but like, how do you feel about your effort in each of those arenas? And you have your priorities, and how do you feel about how much effort you're putting into your priorities versus where are you putting energy into things that might not be your priority? So my work-life balance might look completely different than your work-life balance because we likely have different priorities. We probably have different values. So the way that I might shape my day is based on those priorities and those values. I think what gets tricky with trying to attain the work-life balance is when we're using somebody else's definition or somebody else's view of what that should look like. And I think that it's interesting that you brought up, like, we can't all have like a one income family. And a lot of times, like some of the clients that I work with don't want to have that. They want to work. And a lot of their identity is tied to their career and what they were doing pre-kids. So then that brings up another scenario of like, how do I balance this pre-child version of myself with the post-child version of myself, or like the current version of myself who's a mother? And that is almost like an identity crisis, essentially, of how do I navigate this now?
No, for sure. I mean, I'm not the kind of mom who wants to be a stay-at-home mom. Like, that is not my cup of tea. I want to be able to go to field trips and, do the things, but I don't want to homeschool or have my kids home all the time. Like, I need my own separate thing outside of motherhood for me to feel good. And so that's my definition. And I love that you share that it is a feeling, and that because we're all unique and different and have different values and different priorities and different dreams and goals, that it is unique to each of us. And so that kind of like brings up the whole phrase, like, comparison is the thief of joy. And that is so true. It's when we're measuring our life to someone else's yardstick that we feel that compare and despair. I really love that phrase. I recently heard that. And I agree with you that I do feel like work-life balance is something that we need to customize and that it can evolve over time, right? Our life comes in seasons where maybe you have work projects and a certain time of year it's going to be hectic and you're going to have to drop some of those rubber balls when it comes to motherhood and lean on partnership, or maybe you're going to delegate it to someone or hire someone for help. But I do believe that it is achievable because it's not like okay, if you follow these steps and have it look this way, then you'll have that white picket fence house if people even dream to have that anymore. But I think we need to spend more time really getting clear. And I know you talk about clarity a lot. So can you share more about how clarity helps us obtain our own unique version of work-life balance?
Yeah, absolutely. And really, it's about getting clear. Like I mentioned, what are your values? What are your priorities? And you mentioned comparison. And I think that social media is great in some ways. And then in other ways, it just like fuels that comparison. Like, people compare themselves to other people forever. But before social media, you might just compare with like your coworkers or people you know, your neighbors. But now it's like 24/7. You have this little computer in your pocket that every time you pull out, you're scrolling, you're looking at people, and people only share what they want you to see. Even if they're sharing something tough or something that they're struggling with, it's still a curated image of their life. And so when we start to compare and we start to like see everybody else, like, that's when those little like shame thoughts start to come up of like, am I the only one who can't handle this? Like, what's wrong with me? Like, why can't I keep up? And I think that, like, knowing that, like, that is a part of that clarity of like knowing that what I'm seeing other people doing might not be the full picture. And as hard as it is, like, don't focus on everybody else, just focus on yourself and what you want for your life. And like you mentioned, like the seasons and how things are always going to change, like your values are going to shift and change over time. It's not like a one and done process of getting clear on what's important to you, because it's going to change, in a month, in 6 months, whatever. Same with priorities. Like that shift of, maybe I've been putting a lot of energy into work lately. Something is feeling off. I'm feeling that push and pull between the two things. I think I need to shift and put some energy into my family. And it's always going to kind of have that ebb and flow. It's never going to be a perfect split. But just really getting clear on what is most important to you and why will help you make those decisions of, this is where I want to put my time, and this is where I want to politely decline. This is not something that I'm going to be able to engage in at this time.
Yeah. And I think that powerful exercise of reflection, and like regular, consistent reflection, whether it's monthly, quarterly, like, I don't know, every 6 months or even yearly, is really important, because we are changing as time is going on. We're experiencing things are happening, we're changing as a person. And when we don't reflect, we're going to continue going on autopilot, and it just like keeps feeling like more of the same. And that's how we end up feeling overwhelmed, helpless, hopeless, and defeated. Whereas what I'm hearing you say, Jen, is like, when you do get that clarity, then that leads to potential action. It leads to ideas on what to do to move forward so that you can change your circumstances. So with that said, I know a lot of people, including myself, feel like I'm not being who I want to be in my family because I am just so stressed out. I've got a lot going on at work. I got a lot going on at home. When do I get to breathe? Right? And you kind of sometimes feel like you're back into a corner where it's like, well, I guess the natural thing is I got to quit my job, or I got to go work somewhere else, or reduce my hours, because I can't exactly quit my family. So what do I do?
Yeah. And I feel like something for working moms is like, you can feel like your time belongs to everyone but yourself, because you have this huge chunk of your day that's your work day. And then, you do like the second shift from like 5 to whatever your kids go to bed, with dinner, like bath time and the bedtime routine. And then you're like left with what, a half hour, an hour to yourself. So yeah, some people get to that point of like, well, when do I get to breathe? When do I get that break? And for some people, maybe leaving the workforce is the answer. Obviously, it's going to be different for everybody, but some things to consider is like, you can also be a stay-at-home mom and also have those same feelings of overwhelm and not having time for yourself. So it's looking at, how are my boundaries? Do I need to set better boundaries? Am I overextending myself where I shouldn't be? And do I have the ability to pull back in some areas? Am I saying yes to things that I really don't want to be saying yes to? And maybe reflecting on, where can I say no? And even if you already said yes, sometimes you can change your mind. It's okay to change your mind sometimes. People feel burnout in work, and people feel burnout with parenting. So I think it's also just looking at personal habits and personal behaviors and how you're going to approach that situation. Because I think you can approach work in a more sustainable way, and you can also approach parenting in a more sustainable way.
Yeah. And I mean, that just makes me think of, the grass isn't always greener on the other side, and kind of just try and look at your particular situation. Are there small things that you can tweak? And I love that you brought up boundaries, because I feel like a lot of moms, they hear self-care and they're like, well, I don't have time to go on a girls' vacation every week, or I just don't have it in me to do the self-care beyond my half hour. And then, maybe I'm trying to read, but then I fall asleep. It's like, when do I get to care for myself if I don't have time to do all that, or I don't have the energy to prepare for it? Because, as moms, we got to prepare for us to even go take time for ourselves. And boundaries is a great example of self-care in motion. Like, we don't have to dedicate this like big chunk of time every time for self-care. There are different things that we can do to care for ourselves at any moment of the day, right? Even with your reference to Instagram and seeing people's feeds. I've been in the practice for years now of unfollowing people. Like, did they piss me off? No. They're probably amazing. But do I like how I feel when I experience their content?
Mm-hmm.
That's the thing. Do they make me feel shitty about myself? Okay, that's enough for me. Like, they're creating content to help people. It's not helping me. So I'm going to unfollow. And so curating your feed is also important too. And knowing that you have so many choices that you're making throughout the day that can serve as self-care. Even the way you navigate home life with your husband and how you decide how much you're going to work at home after your working hours are technically done, right? So what I'm hearing from you is that the first step isn't to be like, okay, I should leave the workforce.
It could be for some people, like if like your job is not what you want to be doing, and like ultimately, like in your heart and your value is that you want to stay home with your kids. Because for some women, and I'm with you, like I say to my husband now, like I would prefer to be a stay-at-home mom now when my kids are older versus when they're babies, because it's just such
100%.
hard work when they're babies. But for some women, that is their heart's calling, and that's exactly what they want to do. And for them, their work is always going to feel misaligned because that's not the thing that they want to do. So for some women, yeah, maybe leaving the workforce is the answer. And that is the first thing. And, those feelings of that push and pull from one thing to the other will go away once you're doing what you're wanting to be doing. But for other women who, either life circumstances or whatever requires them to be in the workforce, or they do want to be in the workforce, but they want it to feel more sustainable, then I would say, no, the first step isn't just to quit, but maybe also looking at it as like, is this the right career, or this the right job for me? Does this job specifically fit my life? And, many women after they have children, they step back, but not necessarily leave the workforce. They just find another position that has either more flexibility or some kind of policy that's going to work better with their life.
Yeah, I tried to do that myself, actually.
Yeah.
So I have a stepson. And so, I already had a child to raise while working. And then I got pregnant. And when I was on mat leave, I just decided I don't want to go back to that job, because I just know that I'm going to be so stressed out, because I was already stressful with one child, right? Now I have a child that goes to school and I have a baby. So I've got to take this kid to school while I have this person who doesn't have a consistent schedule. I don't know what's going to happen. And my family is getting the shittiest version of me because I'm constantly stressed out with getting people ready and then taking them. And then when they come home, it's like, okay, let's do the dinner time rush, the bedtime rush. And then it's like, it's like, well, that's not who I want to be. I want my kids to know that I am happy to see them. I want my kids to feel that I am present with them, not like this stress case who just is constantly rushing them to go somewhere, whether it's to school or to bed. And so, I asked my employer, okay, when I come back, is there an opportunity for me to work from home? Is there an opportunity for me to go part-time? The answer was no. And so for me, it was like, okay, well, this job isn't worth it. I'm going to choose to exit the workforce. And thankfully I did, because I realized that my calling is to be a marriage coach. But I feel like a lot of women are faced with this challenge of oh my gosh, I just really loved this time that I spent with my new baby, and now I have to go back to work. And how do we make this work with whether they're breastfeeding or pumping or whatever, and childcare. And then when they get older, where I'm at right now, the kids are in so many dang sports, right? I mean, I do limit it because that's my form of self-care. I don't want that to be my life. But how do you help your clients navigate that, right? Because the busyness changes over time, right? We go from unpredictable schedules and tiredness because you don't know how much sleep you're going to get to oh gosh, right after work, like my schedule is full because I have become a bus driver where I'm
Right.
taking the kids to all the things. And then we get home, kind of late and do dinner and all that. So, like, how do you work with your clients when it comes to that kind of busyness?
Yeah. And I like that you mentioned the sports with your kids and that you do limit that, because that is something too that I would tell my clients is like, well, what are you saying yes to? How many things are you signing yourselves up for? And like, why are you signing up for so many of those things? Like, and I think like the underlying theme, like with everything is the why. Like, why are you doing it? Are you doing it because this is something that you're all truly passionate about, like everything that you're involving yourselves in? Or is this something that you're doing because you're like the keeping up with the Joneses, or you feel like you have to, or like that's just what people do? And you mentioned autopilot, and I always say things like, the life that you want to have isn't just going to happen by accident. Like, you have to put intention into it. You have to consider, what do I want my life to look like? And if you never have those moments where you step back to actually think about what you want to be doing and compare that to what you are doing, things aren't going to change. You're just going to keep going through the motions and keep, showing up and not your best self and not the best version of you. And I feel like self-care has become like this controversial topic because like you said, like women say like, well, don't tell me to do self-care because I don't have time to do self-care. But like right there, that is some self-care, is like, how are you going to spend your time leaving work? Like, even if you do have somewhere to be, like, maybe just slow down a little bit. Like, you don't have to rush. You don't have to be gripping your steering wheel on the way home. Like, just noticing when like you're tensing your body and like the things that you're thinking, because like our thoughts impact how we're feeling. So if you're constantly thinking, I'm late, I have to get out of, I have to get where I'm going and this and that. And this is like advice that I need to give myself some mornings getting out of the house with my kids, because it can be really stressful. And in your head, you're going through that loop of like, the next thing, what else do we have to do? And you're checking the clock and it's like this race against time. But just little things like that, like, I do think that self-care is so important. Like, yes, workplace child care policies would be great, having some change in how the workplace maybe could be better for mothers. But until those policies change, I think that there are some things that we can do on a personal level to help us not feel so stressed out all the time. And one of those things is self-care. And I think part of the controversy with self-care is that people often only think of it as like getting a massage or a bubble bath and getting nails done. Exactly. But it's like, no, self-care is literally the care of yourself. So are you eating well? Are you exercising? Are you having social connections with people? Because that's one thing that I feel like can really go over the cliff when you have kids, is like, you never see your friends anymore, or like you don't talk to people anymore because everything's like about your kids and you're just trying to keep your head above water. So like things like that, like for people that, are religious, going to church, like having that spiritual connection, like those things are also self-care. And like you said, maybe limiting the amount of activities that your children are in, or potentially looking at, can another teammate's parent pick them up if you can drop them off, or like little things like that, like thinking outside of the box of like, how can I make this easier on me?
Yeah, absolutely. And I am very thankful that I experienced that moment of like, oh my gosh, how are we going to do this? Right. Because if it wasn't for that, I probably wouldn't be where I'm at right now, where I
Mhm.
feel like, oh, I am constantly asking myself, how can I curate my life to be more easeful? Not easy, but easeful, right? Like, how can I make things easier? And how can I curate my life so that it feels more full, so I can
Mm.
feel grateful for my life? And I love all the things that you said, from being mindful of your thoughts. We often say, like, oh, I have to blank, I have to this. But like, what if you shifted it to like, I get to? What thoughts come up when you do that? And even leveraging your community. There are so many days where I'm like, oh, I'm texting my neighbor, like, do you mind getting Dylan from the bus stop? Because, I'm doing this, or da 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 da. Because I know that her son is always at my house. So I know there's a give and take there. And I have to be open to being the person that's supported, not just the supporter. And I know that's uncomfortable for a lot of women, but you know what? Just as you are really happy to help other people are also really happy to help you. So you're giving them the opportunity to feel good about themselves as being a kind, helpful community member. And so I think that is not leveraged enough. And the whole mom friend thing, like that is a whole thing. The whole idea of friendship and how it changes after you become a mom, and how you can form new friendships with moms as a mom, because it is a whole thing. Like it is 100% a thing. And we do need to be mindful of how we're curating our life, because sometimes we kind of just like put other people's preferences above our own because we're comfortable with our own discomfort, but we're not comfortable with other people's discomfort. And I think we need to start prioritizing our comfort level as well. Like we don't have to be mean about it, but that is self-care as well. Like in the mornings, I don't want to listen to my kids' song choices. They're too high energy, and I'm just trying to start the day super calm and chill. And so even though they're asking, I'm like, we're going to listen to that later. That's a daytime song, not a morning song. Because I know that if I feel good, then I'm going to put good out there. And this is to their benefit. It's not me being selfish. It's me helping myself set myself up for success. And therefore, they're going to get the best me possible later on. And I think if we, as moms, start to think about it that way and think long term, and about how things that affect us will in turn affect how we are to them, we're going to stop thinking about self-care as selfish, and we're going to start thinking about self-care as essential to our experience, to our kids' experience, to our husband's experience. And I'm just so grateful that moms out there have you to remind them, hey, how are you doing life? Can we like take a look at how you're doing things? Because when you're knee deep in it, it's really hard to like see through the muck, because it's all like mucky. And so you can't get that clarity sometimes because you're just in it. You're like, there is no other way. I've done the best that I can. And while that's true, someone else coming in and looking at it is always going to have more clarity around your situation than we do when we're in it.
Right. You can't read the label from inside the bottle.
Yes.
Yeah. And I think to your point too, like you said, like you need to like really curate your life, is like reminding yourself, like everything is a choice, even when it doesn't feel like it is. Like for women who say like, well, I work because I have to, because we need the money. Like if you really boil it down, it's still a choice, because you could still choose not to work and then just deal with the consequences of not being able to pay the bills. Like most responsible adults are not going to do that. But
or you could move,
right. Yeah. Yeah. Like it's an extreme choice, but it's still a choice. Yeah. And so I think that that's really helpful to remind yourself too, is like, okay, I'm choosing this, and not in a way of like placing blame or any kind of finger pointing, but just knowing like I do have a little more autonomy in this situation than I think that I do.
And that is really empowering if you look at it that way, instead of feeling like, well, these are the cards that I was dealt with and I kind of have to deal with them.
And I'm stuck with it. Yeah.
Right. But no, like these are the choices that you've made, and that's fine. Like maybe you're happy with them, maybe you're not, but we change. And as time goes on, sometimes those choices don't align with who we're becoming anymore or who we are. And so you can always pivot, right? Like work with your husband, talk about it, talk about what it is that you want to create. Again, gain that clarity as a team, and then just make decisions from that space. Like, okay, this worked for us back then, but I guess it's not working for us anymore. What do we want to do about it? How do we move forward? What changes can we make? And honestly, like that's going to be better for everyone.
Right. Yeah. And I will never say that like, oh, being a working mom is so easy. Like you're never not going to start, like you're never going to have zero struggles. Like it's difficult. But I think it also like working through the mindset of like, well, if you're feeling overwhelmed, not making it mean that there's something wrong with you, but just knowing like this is a difficult situation and I'm doing the best that I can. I think just remembering that as well is really helpful.
Yeah. I mean, life in general is difficult,
right?
Yes. Like this is what
we're here to experience, and it is through the challenges that we grow as people, and that's the whole point.
Yeah.
And so, yeah. Okay. So recap, curate your life.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, if it comes down to anything, is get that clarity around what it
Yeah.
is that you want to experience in your life, how you want to experience it, what you want to experience, and curate your life.
Yeah. And I think that as like your children grow and, you know, like you stated, like having older kids, like the needs that they have are going to change, but they do still need you. But you might find like, okay, I have more capacity to take on more priorities now. And so even if you feel like you've narrowed your priorities down, like so to this tiny little amount of things, it's going to widen over time and things are going to change.
Yes. Oh, and that just made me remember that it is so important for you to recognize when they need you less, like they become more independent, that you don't need to fill it with something for them. You can choose that time for yourself. You can pick up a hobby. You can pick up a sport. I recently picked up tennis, and that's been really fun and like also healing because I'm like, oh my gosh, I have a hobby. You know, like I feel like moms struggle with hobbies. They're like, I don't even know what I like to do anymore, and I don't have time to develop it and hone it. And now my kids are at the stage where it's like I can send them outside and play and not have to be out there with them. Or, you know, they are off to school. And in my downtime when I'm not working, I can go do tennis and I can have community. And it's been incredible. So, yeah,
That's a really good point.
Yeah, if something drops off, think to yourself, okay, these are things that are possible for the kids. These are things possible for me. And these are things possible for my marriage. So like, how do I want to use this? What is best for the overall health of our family? It isn't always, okay, well, that time was allocated to the kids, so it has to stay with the kids. No.
Right. Right.
Well, Jen, thank you so much for being on the show. I am so excited to get the feedback from these listeners on what they're taking away from this episode. Mamas, if you loved what Jennifer shared, please go follow her. Okay. Where's the best place for people to check you out?
I would say on Instagram at Lead with Jen, and Threads as well is like the same handle. I'm a little bit more active in Threads, but I'm still there on Instagram too.
Okay. So go follow Jen. Let her know that you found her from this episode, and just take one thing that you learned today and run with it. See what happens. See if that changes things for you and makes life easier. And go back and tell Jen, like, hey, I tried this thing that you shared on the Marriage and Motherhood podcast, and I can't tell you how much that has made my life feel so much better. Okay. Well, thank you again for being on the show.
Thank you for having me.
Of course.
It was great to be here.
Yes. And mamas, if you know someone that could benefit from listening to this episode too, please do them a solid and share it with her. Okay. And if you have loved this show and you are always coming back to listen to more, please leave a review on iTunes or Spotify. I would be so, so grateful. But that's it for this episode. And I will catch you back here on the next one. Bye. That's it for this episode. I hope you enjoyed it as much as I enjoyed making it. If you did, please send me a message over on Instagram at Michelle Perta Coaching to let me know what you loved most about it. Hearing from my listeners is my absolute favorite. And if you've been loving this podcast, please leave a rating and review. This will help people like you find the show and get the help they need. Catch you here on the next episode. Bye.